Welcome to another episode of the Sussex Non League podcast, where we take a look at all things non-league in Sussex. I'm Matt Pohl, and I'm delighted to be joined by Sussex sport guru Steve Bone and Mark Dunford. The news that has dominated headlines is that FA Cup replays will be a thing of the past in the so-called proper rounds. The FA has announced it will abolish all replays from the first round proper onwards, part of a new agreement between the FA and the Premier League, which will see an extra £33 million going to grassroots football from the top flight each season. The FA had already scrapped replays from the fifth round onwards and said the move to ditch them altogether had been agreed in light of changes to the calendar driven by the expanded UEFA competitions. Mark Dunford, how big of a shock do you think this is? I know that it's kind of been bubbling away in the background, but I wasn't expecting a decision so soon.
No, that's what surprised me, actually, how quickly it come out. But, I mean, I am shocked and I'm not. It's just another ridiculous decision, isn't it? That the FA, whoever, Premier League, etc., all getting their heads together and just coming up with a nonsense that is going to affect a lot of people. And as we've seen already with stories on SussexWorld, you can see that has angered a lot of people. There are some people who probably agree with it, but there's people who probably are involved at the top level. But yeah, I'm really surprised. It just takes a bit more of the romance out of the FA Cup, doesn't it? I mean, every year it seems a little bit more romance gets taken out, and it's going to be a very platonic competition soon, isn't it? There's going to be no romance at all. But I mean, the only good thing that came out of it, I think, was the fact that it's all going to be on weekends again. There's not going to be that silly round which is in the midweek. But I mean, the fact that they brought the final to the penultimate weekend of the season, it's just, it doesn't make it that showpiece big event that it always has been. But yeah, the sort of down the line, I know we're going to get on to how it affects the sort of non-league teams and that. For some, it won't ever affect them. But for some, it could be a decision that in the long run costs them a few more years in existence. It could be as serious as that. So, like I say, I was shocked how quick it came out and shocked that it did actually come to this, but not shocked by another ridiculous thing by football authorities. They seem to just don't know what they're doing, and they don't seem to consult the right people when they make these decisions.
Yes, and another thing that really kind of annoyed me is that there was no real consultation at all with supporters at all. It was a decision that was made, and it's kind of a like it or lump it thing. Steve, what was your initial reaction when you heard the news?
Yeah, same as you two, really. And I was just going to say the consultation, because the FA and the Premier League have clearly been sitting around the table talking about this, working out how much money they need to give the lower clubs to make it seem not so bad. At no point do they seem to have thought, oh, actually, the FA Cup is open to Football League clubs and non-league clubs. We better see what they think, or even we better tell them what we're planning to do. They seem to have come out with the announcement, and the first of all the other clubs have known about it, from what I can tell, is when the announcements come out. Just staggering, really, isn't it? Not surprising, though, really, because, as you say, the FA and the Premier League, they seem to be in bed together. You know, they do what they want to do. They do what suits the big teams with the loudest voices, and never mind the rest of them. And I think people are sick of it, really. I think the sort of level of anger that you've seen from clubs and fans throughout the Football League and in non-league circles as well is quite telling, really. And I think maybe that will have surprised the FA a little bit. I think they might just need to. I'm not saying they're going to change their mind on this. Doubt whether that will happen, but they're going to need to think about this very carefully, because they've got a lot of angry member clubs on their hands now. So how do they do that?
Yeah, as I say, I thought this just popped into my head. We all remember the Super League debacle, don't we? Is that kind of another way of the FA kowtowing to the so-called Big Six clubs in the Premier League? Because it kind of, from my point of view, a lot of managers of the Big Six have complained about the amount of games that we play in. And these just seem the ones that aren't going to make those clubs the most amount of money and are seen as expendable in a way. I don't know if you agree with that.
The big clubs complain about FA Cup replays, but they don't complain about Champions League being extended to 32 and 48 clubs and more group games than it is. And they don't complain when they get offered the chance to go off to Dubai or Qatar and play a friendly. And I think, and people can see that, fans of other clubs aren't stupid. They can see where the really big clubs' priorities lie. They want to become global brands. They want to make money. They want to have fans in all continents. And the other clubs here will think, well, why should that be at the expense of the FA Cup? Everybody loves the FA Cup. Why sort of water that down just to sort of appease the top few? And I've seen a lot of fans of smaller clubs and league clubs saying, well, why don't we just let the six go off and be in that Super League? If that's what they want, we'd all get on well without them and be a lot happier, probably.
Absolutely. Well, we kind of touched on it, Mark touched upon it there, but how big of an impact will this decision have on non-league clubs, not just in Sussex, Steve, but across the whole of England?
Sorry, is that a question to...
It is indeed, yes. About how big of an impact will it be for non-league clubs, this decision?
Sorry, thought you were talking about... I wasn't paying attention.
No worries.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult to measure, isn't it? Because any one club in any one season can have a good cup run. You know, as we've seen this season, Horsham have got to the second round. I know they kind of got knocked out in the first round and then got reinstated. But for Horsham,
they had a replay.
They got a draw at Barnsley. We all remember what a great story that was, and what a night it was back at Horsham for the replay. Live TV, full ground. Didn't go their way, but they still gave a very good account of themselves. Gave them such exposure and such revenue. That's an example of a game that would not have happened if these new rules had already been in place. A lot of non-league clubs that we deal with in Sussex won't get to the first round ever, or for a long time, or it'll happen very rarely. But when they do, the chance to get a second game out of it. And that's whether you're playing your original tie at home and having an away replay, which if it's at a big ground, it is going to make you more money.
Horsham had that with Swansea, didn't they? When they got around years ago.
Indeed.
Yeah. Sorry, carry on.
It can, just one replay, as you said earlier, Mark, can make a big difference to a non-league club's finances. It can keep them going for a long time. I wonder how much money Maidstone have made this year from getting to the fifth round, and how is it going to keep it secure for? The FA Cup is still there, the rounds are still there, and Horsham can still get to the first round, for example, next year, and make some money from a one-off game. But taking away the replays is just it's another step towards reducing the sort of the appeal of the cup to all clubs other than the top few.
Yeah. I wonder. We discussed it briefly yesterday, Steve. I wonder if it'll be now they're allowed clubs to swap fixtures again, because there was a time when a non-league club could say, "Oh, actually, if we're playing Man United, can we play at Old Trafford?" But they haven't been allowed to do that recently. But whether they reintroduce that to give those non-league clubs that chance to make a lot of revenue from the ticket sales and that, so that'll be interesting.
You'd hope so, won't you? But that would be too sensible, wouldn't it? That would be far too helpful. It's far too helpful to the small clubs.
I know this isn't necessarily related to non-league, but Mark, you cover Crawley Town, and they will obviously be affected by the decision to scrap replays. And you spoke to Scott Lindsay yesterday, I think, in his pre-match press conference. What did he have to say about it? Mixed opinions, from what I understand. Yeah,
he had two views. He was thinking about the actual club. He was saying it's not great because they're a team that if they get to the third round, draw a Man United or a Liverpool, etc., and they get at home and they manage to get a draw, which this Crawley Town team feasibly could, certainly against Man United, probably beat them. And for Crawley Town, cash is everything. Yeah, they've got these American millionaire owners and that. But if you go to Crawley Town, they haven't got a big budget. They've got 5 full-time employees at Crawley Town. So a huge game like that can keep them running or help them with their player budget. I mean, they can sign more players, get a bigger squad, become a better team, etc. So it will affect them as well. But the Crawley Town, but on a personal level, Scott Lindsay said actually he doesn't think it's a bad thing because this year his players will have played 53 games by the end of the regular season, with possibly 3 more if they get in the playoffs. So that's 56 games. And he said it's a lot of football, and these players are knackered. They're tired out. And I know people moan, say, oh, they get paid for it, they shouldn't be tired. But they are. It's a lot of physical effort. And it does, people get worn out. I think he agrees that if you can just have the one game, that's great. And it does. I mean, not that it affected Crawley this year. They got knocked out of the League Cup in the first round and the FA Cup in the first round, so without a need of a replay. So it didn't really affect them this year. But it could do if you have a good run. If you get first round, second round, third round, possibly fourth round. If you have to have replays in all those games, that's 4 extra games that could affect your league season if you're pushing for something. So Steve's got something to say on that.
Scott's lucky he wasn't around in the 70s, where you didn't just have a replay. If it was level at the end of 90 minutes in the replay, you'd have a second replay and a third. And there was a saga between, I think it might have been Arsenal and Liverpool. I might be wrong with that, but Arsenal and Liverpool, like late 70s, and went to a 4th replay for one round.
Really?
And I don't think I don't know, maybe they did complain back then, but they probably just got on with it. They probably had the same 11 players playing in each round. Football was better back then.
Football was better back then.
Drifting into that territory now.
Yeah, but it's interesting because the actual football club and the Crawley Town Supporters Alliance put out a statement yesterday, a joint statement. They've expressed their disappointment and regret that next season there will be no replays. This is especially concerning given that no Premier League teams participate in either of these early rounds. So that's a fair point, isn't it? It's a fair point. Why not do it from the third round onwards? Yeah, exactly. But they said, but how it affects Crawley, they said, as a football club, we have previously set a stadium attendance record twice as a result of a replay. There is a bit of dispute about this game, but it's either Hastings or Horsham in 94-95 and Tiverton in 2002, 2003. So, and these are legacies to key. They say these legacies are key to lower league football clubs. So, obviously, when Crawley went to Old Trafford, they were a non-league club in the FA Cup. So, I can see where Scott Lindsay's coming from, but I think he understands that if it means that he can sign more players because they've had a big replay at Old Trafford, then he probably would agree. Yeah, he'd be gutted if he missed out on that. So, interesting times.
Steve, you're a Portsmouth supporter. I know that the rule won't affect you next season after getting promoted. Portsmouth will come in the third round for being in the Championship. But as a football league, a support of a football league club, what do you make of it as well outside of your Sussex Non League hat on?
Absolutely the same view. I was asked last night by one of our National World colleagues, Simon Carter, down at Portsmouth, to name some memorable Pompey FA Cup replays for a little piece he's putting together about why these occasions can be so good. And I came up with 5 pretty quickly. He wanted to do a top 5. I came up with 5 pretty quickly, and get their games you think back to, and they're games that are still talked about now. I'll give you a couple of examples. Pompey when we were in the Premier League 2003-04, we went up to Liverpool in the 5th round and managed to draw. Got them back down to Fratton Park for a big replay on a Sunday afternoon, live on TV, live on BBC, I think it was, and beat them 1-0. And people still talk about that game now. We then got through to the quarterfinals and lost to Arsenal. And probably the most famous Pompey FA Cup replay of all was the semi-final 1992. Which I don't want to talk about too much because we lost on penalties to Liverpool, and it was very hard at the time. But you think back to that, and if that tie had been settled in the first time, maybe we'd have won. You don't know, but you'd only have half the memories that people have got now of that run. So I think even the bigger football league, a lot of the bigger football league clubs, and the sort of smaller Premier League clubs will be sorry about this, and they'll all have their memories of famous replays and replay triumphs. So don't think we've heard of the last of it anyway. Put it like that.
No, definitely.
No, I was going to say, you mentioned the memories there. You go back to Horsham's FA Cup run when they ended up playing Swansea, when they ended up drawing at home with them. They ended up going to the Liberty Stadium and ended up going, I think it was 2-1 up. And for a moment you thought, we're going to do this. And then they ended up getting 6-2. But they said it's the core memories for non-league fans that don't support teams that will have trips to, like Brighton has had, to like Rome or Amsterdam or something like that. And for a personal point of view, I feel like it's just such a shame, and it just kind of kills it a little bit for non-league clubs. There doesn't. I know there is the incentive of playing a football league club, but I think Dom said when Horsham drew Dom DePaola, sorry, when they drew 3-3 at Barnsley, if the game had gone any longer and it got into extra time, Horsham would have lost that game because the fitness would have won out for Barnsley. And to me, it just seems such a shame.
As well.
Yeah, it's such a shame.
Yeah, so that's a really good point, actually. Yeah.
I don't know whether or not there could have been any other solutions to this problem. The first one that springs to mind, and
Scrap the League Cup.
I hate the League Cup with every fibre of my being, and there is no need for the League Cup. Could they not have just done away with that and kept replays? Where is the financial because I don't think you get any money for winning games, do you, in the League Cup?
I think, because I listened to another podcast, the Football Ramble, a friend of mine does it. They took the mick out of this because I think they win like maybe £100,000. That's it for winning the League Cup. I mean, it might even be less than that. I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's ridiculous, isn't it? Because what's the incentive of winning the League Cup for? I mean, £100,000 is a lot of money. I get that, but not for Man. Yeah, that's to win it. Yeah. That's not for Manchester City, not for Liverpool, not for Man United, not for Chelsea, not for Arsenal, who are the 5 teams who are probably going to be in the final and win it. So it's ridiculous. It pays one player's wages for 1 week. Yeah, it's just get rid of the League Cup. I'm up for that because the Bristol Street Motors Cup. I know there's things that I think that has got a place because it gives those smaller teams a chance to get to Wembley. Like Crawley Town could have feasibly, if the wind had gone right for them, could have feasibly got to Wembley this year in that competition, and they've never been to Wembley, and they might have another chance in the playoffs. But I don't think get that, but that's not going to affect Premier League clubs at all. But if you want to give the Premier League clubs a rest, get rid of that.
Or do you say to the Premier League clubs, and you'd have to say it probably only to Premier League clubs, if you want to withdraw from the FA Cup this in any one season, you can, or if you want to withdraw from the League Cup, you can. Give them the choice. Don't let them come out of both, but say we're keeping FA Cup replays, but you don't have to play in it if you think that's going to be too many games for your poor overworked players, or you come out of the League Cup, and if they're that bothered, they will, and everybody else who's left in the League Cup will be quite happy to carry on without them.
The thing for me for the League Cup is that there doesn't seem to be the same level of fan interest as there, especially my mate. He supports Arsenal, and he said that he only really cares about the League Cup probably when his team gets to the final. Other than that, he's not too fussed about it. I don't know whether or not I don't know. Has Portsmouth got a particularly good record in the League Cup, Steve? I must admit, I don't know.
No, pretty poor actually. We've got to a few quarterfinals and they've gone badly. I don't know. I mean, the League Cup has quite soon after the League Cup was launched, about 60 years ago, people said, this won't last. And it kind of has lasted. I know what you're saying. I think it has got a certain appeal, and maybe it's got more of an appeal to Championship, League One, League Two clubs who like the thought of a little run. They'd love the thought of getting a big tie somewhere. But it certainly needs looking at within the. If you're looking at the whole issue of too many games, then that is one to look at, definitely.
Just to confirm, it's £100,000 for winning it. For getting to the semi-finals, you get £25,000. So a big incentive, isn't it? Yeah.
No, bonkers little competition in it. Anyway, Steve Owen, what has the overwhelming reaction been to the? Well, you can probably guess what the overwhelming reaction has been to this decision amongst Sussex Non League clubs about replays getting scrapped.
Yeah, of those that I've seen commenting, they're all saying the same as the league clubs. Really, they're saying it's a great shame, picking the teeth for non-league clubs. No, I think the lack of consultation is a big thing as well. Horsham, a couple of the guys at Horsham have been quite angry about it, and even clubs even further down the pyramid who won't ever get to the first round of the FA Cup and therefore aren't directly affected. I think because they are football clubs and they have sympathy with others who are a bit further up the ladder than them. They're all saying the same thing. I think I've only seen 2 people saying, this is not a bad idea. One was a Man United. This was yesterday when I was trawling through. One was a Man United fan. One was a Spurs fan. Tells you all you need to know, doesn't it?
It absolutely does. But moving away from the FA Cup to the National League South, there was huge Sussex interest at both ends of the table. Tell us how things stand ahead of the final round of games of this season, Steve.
Yes, so the big news today, we're speaking on Friday, is that Eastbourne Borough are safe. They thought they were going to have to go to a nail-biting last day and a trip to Braintree where they might have needed something, but Taunton Town on Thursday night became the fourth team to be relegated. That's occupied all 4 slots now at the bottom. So Eastbourne Borough, who, not that long ago, they were 6 or 7 points adrift of safety. So they've done really well to grind out some results. They've been scoring goals, they've been in form, found their confidence, and they've stayed up with the game to go. They will now need to look at what lessons they can learn from this year and how they can do better next year, and I'm sure that will happen. We'll probably have Simon Leslie on again here at some point telling us how they're going to do that. At the other end, very exciting for Worthing. Worthing are assured of a playoff place, and they go into the final game with they're in third place at the moment. If they finish second or third, they will get a home semi-final playoff, so they'll be straight into the sort of playoff semi-finals in National South. If they end up finishing fourth, and I think they can even finish fifth still, they will then have to play an eliminator before the semi-finals. So it gives an extra game, an extra thing to worry about. They are at home to Western tomorrow, just hoping to get over the line and make sure they finish in the top 3. So, yeah, an exciting end to the season for both our teams there, but in different ways.
I know that obviously their standing has not been confirmed yet, but how would you rate Worthing's chances in the playoffs, Steve, at this juncture?
Yeah, as ever, it'll depend who they end up playing. Chelmsford, who have been second for a little while now, very strong, and you'd probably say they would be favourites to come out of the playoffs as the second team to get promoted. But Worthing are in good form. They've hit good form at the right time. They had a little blip soon after Aaron Racine took over as interim boss, but they've now won 5 in a row. So if they can keep that going tomorrow, that gives them the ideal platform to go into the playoffs, and they won't worry about facing anybody, I don't think.
Meanwhile, in the Isthmian Premier, Hornchurch have been crowned champions, but the race for the playoffs is yet to be resolved. How does the playoff picture look in that division, Steve?
Well, Horsham look like they're going to claim that final playoff place. 5th is where you need to finish to be in the playoffs. Horsham are 5th at the moment. 3 games left. They probably need a win and a draw, I would think, to make sure of it as things stand. One of our other sides, Hastings, have been sort of trying to chase them and trying to keep on their tails. Just went wrong for them last weekend. Played well, created lots of chances, but in the words of Chris Agata, missed some absolute sitters and lost 1-0 to Whitehawk, and that has pretty much put them out of the picture now. I think Hastings would need to win all 3 of their games and hope that Horsham lost all 3 of theirs or only picked up a couple of points if they were going to get back in it. So you'd say it's going to be Horsham in 5th place, and that's great for them. Great achievement, great effort by Dom DePaula and the lads there. Hastings still got something to play for in a way, because if they finish 7th, it's their joint highest league finish ever. Which they can still manage, would obviously therefore be their highest. So plenty to play for them. Lewis and Bognor have sort of tailed off. Well, Lewis have actually done quite well in the last 3. They've won their last 3, but they're going to finish outside the playoffs, as are Bognor, who are back now in mid-table, along with Whitehawk. So mixed fortunes down there.
In the division below, the Isthmian South East playoff race has been resolved, and there'll be Sussex representation in the semi-finals. Which Sussex sides have a shot at promotion to the Isthmian Premier, Mark Dunford?
So it's Chichester City and Three Bridges. As it currently stands, excuse me, Three Bridges are in 5th place, which is the lowest at the bottom of the playoffs. Chichester in 4th place. So as it stands, and if it remains that, they will avoid each other in the playoffs. So we could possibly have a Three Bridges Chichester final, because it's 2nd versus 5th and 3rd versus 4th, I think. So it's the 4th to Sittingbourne are the 3rd, the other team who were confirmed to be in the playoffs, and it will be one of either Ramsgate or Cray Valley who are having a right old ding dong at the top to claim that automatic place. Both who had quite good runs in the FA Cup, I think I think they had, didn't they? Cray Valley and Ramsgate. Cray Valley got a replay, didn't they? I think against I can't remember who it was.
Yeah,
Charlton, that's right. There you go. Brings it all back full circle. But Three Bridges have had Yeah, they've had a funny season because they had a brilliant start. They were unbeaten for ages, and then over Christmas and sort of early in this year, they struggled. But then they put a few good runs together. I mean, but the main thing about Freebridge is the goals they scored. 94 goals they've got this year. So they've got, even though they've confirmed their playoff place, they've still got that little target of maybe getting 100 goals, 6 goals in the next 2 games. But they've got 7 Oaks on Saturday who've got nothing to play for. But they have got Ramsgate, final game of the season, who could obviously need a win to claim the title. So a tough one for them at the end. But they could potentially finish. I mean, mathematically they can finish third, but more likely 5th or 4th, I would say, for Three Bridges. But Chichester City, incredible story. They've got the momentum, haven't they, Steve?
Yeah, I'm going to read you Chichester City's results from the start of February. This is with their score first.
And you do it in like the old Vinnie printer, the guy who used to read the video.
Impression of James Alexander Gordon or something.
That's
I'm not
right, yeah.
going to give you all the opponents because we'll be here all day, but these are their results: 7-1. 0-0, 3-0, 1-0, 3-0, 3-0, 3-0, 2-0, 4-0, 2-0, 6-1, 3-1. And
that 6-1's got to be disappointing, letting in a goal. Yeah.
They actually were, yeah, because that was such a good record. I think they had 9 games without conceding a goal.
Incredible.
Yeah, just an incredible run. And at the start of the season, if you'd said Chichester City would finish in the top 5, even Chichester City wouldn't have believed you because they have a very small budget, quite a small squad. They don't get big crowds. The crowds have gone up a little bit since they got their 3G pitch in at Oaklands Park. But it's just been a phenomenal season for them. The end of it, of course, as we've been reporting, has been sort of overshadowed by real sadness, really. Graham G is Chichester's very popular and well-known assistant manager who'd had kidney cancer, which we've reported on a couple of times, passed away a couple of weeks ago.
Very sad.
They knew it was going to happen. It was sort of it was when if, and that's kind of given the end of their season a very different sort of feeling and a different air. And I think they've kind of embraced it in the sense that they feel they're playing for him now, which is only going to inspire them further. And I think they've done it with great sort of respect to him and his family and great dignity as well. So we wish them all the best in their last couple of league games and in those playoffs as well. Be there to see it.
It'd be they've got the momentum, but whoever finishes second is going to be in the box seat, aren't they, for the playoffs? Because they both had incredible seasons. It's unlikely that any of those others will compete in that, but who knows? It's playoffs momentum, like we say. So. Yeah,
so sometimes in playoffs, if you've got a team who have just missed out on automatic promotion, and so far the others, they've given everything, haven't they? By the time the playoff comes around, so maybe that will be a factor. But you'd say that Ramsgate or Prey Valley will be favourites there.
I do have a Dolphins race. I do hope Ramsgate don't get promoted, because when I used to follow Horsham away from home, they used to play Ramsgate quite regularly, and their away ground is the windiest place, quite possibly on the planet. So I hope Prey Valley go up and one of the Sussex sides go up through the playoffs. So if anyone from Ramsgate is watching, I'm not sorry. And finally, the SCFL Premier looked set to go to the wire in a thrilling title fight, but now we know who has been crowned champions and who will compete in the Isthmian League next season. Which side has earned SCFL Premier honours, Steve, and who has been left to fight it out amongst the playoffs? Yeah,
we need to congratulate Stenning Town, who are SCFL Premier champions. Done it with a game to spare by virtue of, they had a very good win at New Haven, who were their closest rivals last week, won 4-0 at Fort Road. That put them sort of on the brink, and then Crowborough were the only other team that could catch them. They lost 2-1 to Crawley down Gatwick in midweek. That means Stenning are champions. Stenning players had been to training on Tuesday night and hung around to see what happened there, and have been pictured celebrating since, which is nice. So they will go up to step 4, and we assume to the Isthmian South East for next season, unless there's any rearrangement of who's in those leagues. The SCFL Premier playoffs will feature Crowborough, New Haven, Eastbourne Town, and probably Sussex. I think as it stands, Haywards Heath could still edge in there ahead of Sussex, but I think Sussex are favourites to do that. There's one round of games to cut. There's a few odd leftover games tomorrow. The final round of fixtures next Saturday, 27th of April. So those playoffs will be interesting as well. It's the first time that a second SCFL Premier side has been guaranteed a shot at promotion like this through the playoffs. So plenty still to play for all them as well. But well done to Stenning, and we'll be doing more on their title win on SussexWorld and in the Worthing Herald in the days to come.
And no doubt you'll be getting behind Crowborough in the playoffs, Mark.
Come on, Crowborough. Come on, you.
Crows.
Yeah, crows. Yeah, that would make sense, wouldn't it?
And finally, before we close out this edition of the podcast, we're all going to choose our Sussex Non League game of the week. I'm going to start. I'm going to go for Chichester against Ramsgate this Saturday in the Isthmian League South East. As it's been well described, Chichester could have a massive say in this title race. Ramsgate will be sickened if they don't go up because it's been such an exciting title race. So, and obviously, as Steve said, Chichester are in great form, so it should be a humdinger. Mark, what have you gone for?
I've gone for Burgess Hill versus Littlehampton. Littlehampton need just a point will probably be enough, but if they win, they can avoid relegation. But like I say, a point would be enough. They're currently on 31 points, and Beckenham Town, who are in second from bottom, are on 26 points, so 5 points behind. So, yeah, a point might not be enough, but it probably will be. So, but Burgess Hill got nothing to play for other than finishing the season well. So, Sussex rivals should be a good game, and Littlehampton will be going for it. And Littlehampton, one of the only two teams I've ever watched play at Wembley. So there you go. Covered, actually physically covered. So there you go.
There you go. And last but not least, Steve Bone, what have you gone for?
I'm going for Worthing against Weston in the National South, because although Worthing have qualified for the playoffs, the difference between finishing third and fourth is massive. You know, it's one less game, and it gives you home advantage in that playoff semi-final, as we've said. The standings currently: Chelmsford are second with 83, Worthing are third with 81, Braintree fourth with 81, and Maidstone fifth with 80. So any of those could end up third. If Worthing win, basically against Weston, who have been playing a sort of every other day for the past fortnight, I think, so it will work in Worthing's favour. Worthing win, they will be in the top three. So that's what they've got to aim for.
Are the playoffs next week for that, Steve?
I think the next weekend. I think it's I'm not sure when the eliminators are, but I think the playoff semi-finals at that level are Sunday the 28th.
Right. So, okay.
Yeah, some big days to come at Woodside Road, we hope.
Indeed.
Yeah. Fingers crossed. Well, thank you very much for joining us, chaps, and thank you very much for listening. I never know how to end this because normally at the other podcast I've got a little thing to write. But basically, we'll see you when we see you.